Tonight, Michael Cohen testified behind closed doors in the Senate committee. And tomorrow, the president's former personal attorney, he will be back on the Hill for another hearing that will be televised live. A former federal prosecutor weighs in on just how damaging this could be to the president and more. Also, a huge vote in the House as we speak over the president's emergency declaration. Will lawmakers be able to block the president's move to get money for his border wall? Then, as Jared Kushner kicks off his Mideast tour, another controversy involving the Saudis is brewing. This one involving nuclear power, money, and a bunch of administration officials apparently going rogue. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and not another day of dullness in the Trump world. Michael Cohen spending a lot of time on Capitol Hill this week, today testifying at a closed-door hearing before the Senate Intelligence Committee. Tomorrow and Thursday, he will also testify, but only tomorrow's will be open and televised live, and you'll be able to see it here. Republican Maine Senator Susan Collins, she's on the Intel Committee, and she says Cohen was subject to, quote, an extensive grilling today, and nothing was off limits. Cohen also reportedly spent a lot of time explaining untruths that he said the last time he went before the very same committee. Also, I should note here a few different comments that have come out since, including the ranking member for the Democrats, Virginia Senator. He came out and said he considers these hearings the most important chapter of his political career, and nothing he heard today from Cohen changes that opinion. Take that for what it's worth. Tomorrow, in the AM, 10 o'clock, the main event, and the cameras, as I said, will be rolling. Cohen expected to publicly accuse Donald Trump of committing crimes while he was in office, and certainly speaking to his time as counsel when he was in the private sector. He's also planned to release some of Trump's private financial statements and also describe the president using racist language. And late today, listen to this. Republican Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who sits on the committee that will be doing the questioning tomorrow, tweeted what can only be construed as an outright threat to Michael Cohen, directly threatening a witness. Listen to this from a sitting congressman. Hey, Michael Cohen, do your wife and father-in-law know about your girlfriends? Maybe tonight would be a good time for that chat. I wonder if she'll remain faithful when you're in prison. She's about to learn a lot. Again, that from a sitting U.S. congressman, granted somebody who's denied the Holocaust even existed, but he's sitting there, and when asked for comment, the White House did not condemn in any way, shape, or form. Merely they said, the tweet I just read you speaks for itself. So you can expect tomorrow will be very ugly. So here to talk about Cohen and more, former federal prosecutor Stanley Tuarte. I got about a half an hour of questions. I'll try and cram into 10 here. But let's first start with Cohen. If you were Trump, and we understand he's going to be watching live in the overnight from the Far East here, what would you be most concerned about? What Cohen may reveal about you and your practices at the Trump Organization, or Trump as president, and some of the things that he did that could have crossed the line into illegality?
So I think short term, what Trump has done as president, or during the presidential campaign, more specifically, with the payments to Stormy Daniels and everybody. But I think long term, a concern that President Trump has to have is what is Cohen going to be talking about with the inner dealings of the Trump Organization? And that's something that I'm sure he's going to keep an eye out for. We do know that the chief financial officer of the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg, is cooperating with the U.S. Attorney's Office. We know that we have reason to believe others have been called in from, reports at least, others have been called in to talk to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So there's a lot out there. And again, it's going to be, I think, for the testimony, President Trump's going to be worried about what Cohen's going to say. But if whatever he says is going to Trump's reaction is going to be, he's a liar.
Now, Stanley, is there anything that can be said tomorrow that the Mueller team doesn't already know? And I ask that because I know we all believe that the Mueller team has availed themselves to the financial tax returns over the years of Trump, as well as obviously with the cooperating witnesses from within the Trump Organization, Foundation, go up and down the line. That all said, has Mueller tried to stay within a narrowly defined lane, or is he broadened this where he knows more than anybody, not just limited to collusion and obstruction, but also possible illegal business practices in the last 10, 20 years?
I think there's a mistake, with all due respect, focusing on Mueller here, because it's Mueller and it's the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, as we've seen, where Cohen has pled guilty. So I think between the two of them, they're going to know everything. We know again from the sentencing memorandum that were filed that Cohen has been cooperating with the special counsel, with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with the Attorney General of New York. And among those many sessions, you know that the federal government has knowledge of everything that's going on. The other thing we do know, too, is that at the end of the Mueller investigation, whenever that might be, that information will be turned over to the Justice Department and other arms of the Justice Department. So really at this time, the focus, I think, is going to be coming from the Southern District of New York. And that's going to be where things will be moving as far as the Trump organization is concerned.
And do we look at this in a multi-pronged approach? Because we're all waiting for the Mueller report. Legally, though, both for Trump, more specifically family members even potentially, and others, as you said, the Southern District, could there be more exposure? Plus, a pardon doesn't exactly work there with a get-out-of-jail-free card. This will be, at the end of the day, for the president, at least, a political exercise. What will Congress say as to whether or not a high crime and misdemeanor has occurred or not? Do we need to look at things in conjunction when we process this, Stanley, where we say, okay, there's the Mueller report, as you said. This is what the Southern District is saying. This is also what they're learning in the various congressional probes that are going on into Trump. Do we have to look at it as a mosaic, or will everybody say, okay, what did Mueller say? What didn't he? We'll get to in a second whether or not we're even going to see the thing.
Okay. So the answer is, I think it is a mosaic we have to look at. There are going to be bits and pieces that we've seen. One thing from Special Counsel Mueller, that he is very disciplined. We've not seen leaks like you often do in investigations. We know he's playing by the rule book. The other thing that's at play here, though, not so much maybe for President Trump, but for family members, is if you look now, how many of these convictions or guilty pleas have been as a result of somebody lying to Congress? So what are we going to be finding out from what people have testified in Congress that is maybe different than what the facts are?
And that's a perfect segue. Donald Trump Jr. Recently went on TV, and he tried to make the position, I've heard others say this too, that are defenders of the president, this is a witch hunt here, and they've really found nothing after all this time. They just tripped up from people in certain lies. Listen to Donnie Jr., and I'd love to get your reaction.
I've been hearing this for 2 years, where everyone's going to jail. Meanwhile, they haven't actually found anything as it relates to this. What they did was they put incredible pressure on regular guys that couldn't afford $1 million in legal fees and got them to slip up and say something incorrectly. They pretended they were their friends. They got them, and that's all that happened. There are no actual crimes.
No actual crimes. Now, there's spinning, and then there's, putting me in vertigo. But can you just put in context, as a former federal prosecutor, people have pled guilty, people have gone to jail, and it's not just for little slip-ups or because they couldn't afford attorneys. Real crimes were committed here.
There are real crimes, and there's also they're lying to Congress, which is a crime itself. And it goes back how far? We go back to Nixon. It's not the event as much as it is the cover-up of things. And we've seen stories change here throughout. So, I think that again, we also don't know what will happen. This sort of reminds me, I think, the Mueller report and what Mueller is doing, at least, it's a little bit like the 4th of July fireworks, that you reach the crescendo at the end. We'll find out over the next matter of weeks, maybe days, as to what is going to be the final boom here for this 4th of July event with Special Counsel Mueller.
Speaking of Mueller and the report, Rod Rosenstein seemed to put some cold water out there that says, hey, listen, this report, it very well may not be distributed in full to lawmakers, let alone to the general American public. Practically, in 2019, can something like this stay under wraps? They can always subpoena Mueller in the House now, given what happened in the midterms. At the end of the day, are we going to see this whole report, you think?
I don't know that you're going to see the whole report. Will we get a feel for the whole report? I think yes, for the reason you say, that at the very least, we know that the House of Representatives will subpoena Mueller to come and testify. But again, remember that we are a nation of rule of laws, okay? And that's something that I know that the president doesn't always play by those rules. But we are a nation of rule of laws, and there are things that are classified information, which would not be good for sources of the CIA or FBI to have that information known. And also, grand jury. This is a grand jury, and people's testimony in the grand jury is secret until it gets released pursuant to some certain protocol. Usually it's in connection with, if it was just a normal regular criminal case, the person's grand jury testimony would become public when that person testified at a trial. So there are rules out there that do limit what Mueller can do, Mueller himself can do. They will then go to Bill Barr, the new Attorney General, who has told us it will be as transparent as possible, but he also has to play by the law too. So I think that you're going to see at the end of the day, going back to your terminology before Mosaic, that looking in different forums, that we're going to see everything come out. Whether it's through the report itself or the versions of the report that's disclosed, whether it's through sentencing memorandums. We're seeing that with Manafort. We're learning more about what's going on there, and what may come out of the Southern District or other law enforcement agencies.
I'm sure, like myself, you're going to be watching for the entertainment value of tomorrow with the Cohen testimony. But a macro question to you, and as somebody who's made a lot of this your professional life, I've heard people extremely concerned that are in the third branch here to say, my God, the attempted assaults on our court system or on the separation of powers or on the idea of co-equal branches of government, etc. And other people saying, wait a minute, the line has held. Even with all attempts here to shut down investigations, to fire people that have been involved in the probing, to do whatever else, at the end of the day, before the report, granted, has come out and before justice, whatever that will be issued, we've held the line here. And the courts, the FBI, the justice system more broadly, it has been, to this point, at least a fair arbiter in trying to search for the truth. Are you more optimistic or more concerned after what you've seen the last 2 years?
Well, I'm concerned for the long-term impact here, that while the courts have held, the attacks that perhaps are the most pernicious that the president has done has been on law enforcement itself. And it used to be when, 25 years ago when I was the United States Attorney, at the end of trials, the judge would give a charge to the jury saying that just because somebody was in law enforcement, you can't give that person more credibility than someone else. What the president has done now has reached a point where people who are in law enforcement, their credibility has been attacked. And that's, as I say, the most pernicious about this, and it's something that's going to be long-term. It's going to take a while for law enforcement to be held in get the respect that they need. And again, God bless the people in the FBI and the Justice Department who have kept in there with all this. But boy, it erodes their confidence and erodes the public's confidence in them in the long term, which will hurt our system.
As always, Stanley, I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. When we come back, everybody, certainly a busy day on Capitol Hill, including some hearings of real relevance to the voters and viewers here watching us tonight. The House vote to block the president's emergency declaration for the border wall. We'll have an update on that, plus more on family separations and those prescription drug prices. All of that after this.